Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2017 MSI Plans. Fans are already loading into the Estúdios Quanta in Sao Paulo, Brazil to get in on that action. Of course, an exciting day of games ahead of us, and already crowd looking pretty full up. TSM fans, Gigabyte Marines fans, all aside. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Dracos, and taking over the analyst desk with me today is Zach Rusty Pie and James Tresselier. How you feeling, guys?
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
Yeah, feeling great. Welcome to you.
Yeah, I've been watching from behind the scenes. Now I've taken the shocks, the dash training. Now I'm here on the desk for you guys. But of course, it's been an exciting, the first round of plans already going through. We've lost so many teams along the way. What were your thoughts kind of on the group stage overall?
Yeah, honestly, it's been a surprising journey, especially for the teams playing today. But there's a little bit of sadness you'd have to imagine in the air that the Red Cannons didn't quite make it to the live finals here.
A little bit of sadness. The crowd were firmly behind them, but honestly, the crowd so far have been behind everybody. I think that may change up a bit now that TSM take to the stage, because we're getting into now round two, the toughest stages. TSM, Flash Wolves, they come in. Now is the chance to qualify for MSI.
Yeah, very exciting to see who's going to make it through. But of course, if you want to participate in the MSI and during MSI only, you can unlock the 2017 MSI Conqueror Karma Bundle. With that bundle, you unlock a commemorative board skin, plus a border and an icon that's exclusive to MSI 2017. And with 25% of all those purchases being added to the MSI prize pool, Conqueror Karma is on sale now, so make sure to pick her up anytime between now and May 24th before she goes into the Legacy Vault to contribute to that prize pool to get yourself a 6 skin. Overall, great deal. But before we get into today's matchup, let's pull up the bracket and see what our week of games is going to look like and talk a little bit about that stakes. First, we have TSM facing off against the representative from the GPL, the Gigabyte Marines. Tomorrow, we see Turkey Supermassive looking to take down the Flash Wolves from the LMS.
And of course, the winners from these first two matchups of round two move directly into the MSI group stage. The losers will face one another with one last chance to get in on that final spot for the MSI groups.
Luxury of double elimination. Worry not, TSM fans. If you go down today, you will get another shot. Although we'll see. We'll turn our attention to that matchup
Already
right now.
firing shots.
As an EU caster, it's kind of ingrained in me. All right, well, it's TSM coming up first against Gigabyte Marines. And for TSM, they're coming in hot. They won that NALCS fifth title in a row, or not in a row, rather, fifth title overall. Fantastic performance.
And it wasn't hot during the split for TSM. That's the thing you have to remember. They finished reasonably dominant, but even in the finals, they were coming in a second fiddle to Cloud9. They weren't exactly the standout performers, but then they showed up when it matters most, and namely, it speaks towards Hansa actually getting a lot better, where the rest of the team did still have some inconsistency.
Yeah, we've seen insane performances from the TSM solo laners. Bjergsen, obviously a titan worldwide, not just in NA, and Hansa really stepping up, making a name for himself, consistently a top performer in the NALCS.
And I think that's the interesting thing. You look at TSM, yes, strong solo laners are absolutely a benefit to them, but you look at the region they come from now. This is where MSI, the clash of all the different regions, really shows itself. It's like NA is regarded as one of the regions that do have a firmer grasp on strategy. So it's not only about those solo laners. You look at the way they implement coaching staff, the way they make plays on the map. Macro game is going to be a big strength for TSM as well.
Absolutely something they have to play for, look to take advantage of in this series, because today they're going to be going up against the Gigabyte Marines, who came into this tournament not only underestimated, but kind of underappreciated at first, but we saw that change very quickly in their first few games.
And it's kind of amusing that we did come into this tournament underestimating the Vietnamese side, right? Because they dominate in their own VCS league. They come into the GPL qualifiers against 5 other regions, I believe, and dominate that as well. Basically undefeated the whole way through to this tournament. They go 5-1. And I wouldn't even call that one defeat a genuine defeat, because they'd already qualified by that stage. They were just throwing themselves at everybody. So for what it's worth, underappreciating this team can prove to be a mistake.
And not only just before the games, but in games as well. A lot of teams were overlooking the decisive calls the Gigabyte Marines were making, just going for Baron or making set plays, like looking at teleport plays. Like everything was on a pretty high level for the GPL's Gigabyte Marines. And now you got to look at the individuals that we've been talking about, Levi, Optimus. They are one of the big sticking points for the Gigabyte Marines, but they match up against Svenskeren and Bjergsen. That's a scary duo to have to face in jungle and mid yourself.
Yeah, Levi going up against Svenskeren. This feels like a very intense jungle matchup. Now, of course, Svenskeren had a bit of an inconsistent split, but still very much a strong jungler overall. What are you guys' thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, Svenskeren is one of the places when you look at TSM's roster that perhaps the Gigabyte Marines could attack, potentially exploit, and it comes towards the tendencies of Svenskeren as a jungler. He likes to invade. He's often found alone, caught in places where he has no right being, and that is because he's always invading, and against a jungler like Levi, he will punish you. He will, if nothing else, he will fight you for that area, that territory.
We've definitely seen him fight a whole lot. Now, it's interesting to me because we've seen these guys kind of take, to a certain degree, very similar champions overall. And I'm curious, are we going to see the jungle pool be very contested when it comes to fighting between these two teams?
I think you got to look at the Lee Sin, you got to look at the Graves, but there is one outlier that we haven't seen yet from Levi, and that's the Ivern. TSM have played it a number of times, and it is a champion that, you know, can scale later into the game. TSM playing maybe a slower game can look to scale up and not allow the snowball style that the Gigabyte Marines were showing to crush their opponents in round one of the MSI play-ins.
And of course, Ivern's just been an immensely popular pick throughout the tournament thus far, so it feels like it has to be high priority. Do you think there's any chance we're going to see Levi pick that up, or is this just something that the Gigabyte Marines need to ban away?
I think there's no chance we'll see Levi play it. It's just not his style as a player, right? He's an aggressive, kill-oriented jungler. He'll go from his red buff to the blue buff and then look for kills immediately. You compare that to Svenskeren, perhaps picking someone like Ivern for TSM actually tempers his aggression, because whilst you can invade, it's about taking the camps, not for fighting, and that could be ultimately where Svenskeren does go down. So a champion that TSM should look towards.
Well, as important as the jungle is, we kind of have to look at what lanes they're going to be affecting. And for me, the lane that we have to watch is that mid lane. Optimus going up against Bjergsen. Optimus, a legend in his own region. Bjergsen, it's the same story. I'm really curious to see how this one is going to go.
Oh, exactly. This is another one of these matchups where on paper there's so much that can differ, because Bjergsen, at least over the last year, has shown us a lot of different styles. It's not necessarily about Bjergsen carrying for himself. A lot of Talia in recent times too, so he can also go up, whether it's top lane or bot lane, try and get the other lanes going. But Optimus is going to struggle to get the same kind of leads, in my opinion, that he got against the other mid laners in the group stage of round one. Bjergsen just is a very solid laner, so difficult to put in.
Yeah, and that's the key word, is solid. He's actually the most consistent player on this team, you'd think it's safe to say, right? The solo lane is the strengths on this team, but Hornser is more of the star power, and not to take away from Bjergsen being a star by any means, but he's just the rock. He'll never lose lane, and if Optimus actually manages to crack that shell, then TSM would be broken wide open.
Definitely a tough bet, though, to try to take down Bjergsen here on the stage. Now, we look at both these teams. Gigabyte Marines, maybe not the favorites in this series. If you're playing on their side, what are you going to do to try to take down TSM? What is the avenue to shutting down this team?
I think it's early aggression through their jungler. The first and biggest thing you have to do when you look at the draft and how that reflects that is try and get the Lee Sin, the Elise, or something like that for yourself, but also have a pushing mid lane, a pushing potentially top laner, or somewhere that can influence the map. You disregard bottom lane because that's what TSM's doing, and their win condition is usually on the top half of the map, and you try and beat them where you're strong. You don't play towards your own weaknesses.
That is difficult at the same time, though, when your enemy's strengths are like almost identical at that point, and you look at the top and bottom lane, which we are saying maybe not the strongest points for the Marines themselves. It might very well be tough. If you're so used to Levi and Optimus getting these massive leads, suddenly Svenskeren and Bjergsen aren't giving away a lot of deaths or, you know, any kind of lead. I want to see how the Marines react to an even-played game against a team that can hang with them on both an individual and a strategic level. That's why I think this is such an intriguing matchup between these two teams.
Very exciting. Of course, you can see the players now walking onto the stage, roar of the crowd for that reception. Has to feel good for both these guys. And of course, TSM chant. We had him in the EU final too. No matter where you go, you hear TSM chanted. But this time, it is the right time. It's TSM on stage, looking pretty confident.
And this is, you know, an important matchup for them. They didn't make it to MSA last year. It was CLG that came through. So at least for the organization, there's a little bit more on the line. Not only are you facing one of the quote-unquote emerging regions coming through here, this should be somewhat of a comfortable game. When you look at it region versus region, NA have always been known to at least qualify to the main stage, the groups of MSI, and typically have done well before.
But they have been known to lose to wildcard teams when it comes to these tournaments as well. So there's always going to be something playing on the minds of the NA region. Fortunately for CLG, they avoid losing to them as they're not going to be competing. TSM will be hungry to improve that.
Yes, definitely. And I think we can say that there is a ton of pressure on TSM, but also when we look at the two teams, we expect there to be a slight difference in the macro ability of TSM moving forward. Now, looking at TSM, is this kind of the opportunity for you to show something new? You've had a bunch of weeks to practice. You've had the opportunity to improve the team play even more than what we saw in the finals. What do we expect to see from them?
I actually have an expectation in the first game. It'll be the most standard thing that you'll see from TSM, right? This is the opportunity for the Gigabyte Marines to show a strategy, to try and cause an upset and actually force TSM to start at least revealing their hand. Because if you're TSM, you would actually be approaching this game like, yes, it's important. Yes, it gets me to MSI. But my crazy strategy should be saved for the Koreans, for the Europeans, for the Chinese, and and potentially LMS or Turkish teams that we'll be up against in the main event.
And to that point, we saw somewhat of a diversity of strategy from TSM through their playoff runs. It wasn't necessarily one comp that got them through. We saw differences in top lane, whether it was the Camille coming through. I think there's enough of champion pool depth for the team that in a best of 5, I think the Gigabyte Marines may very well take a game. Getting the Lee Sin, getting a strong mid laner, I think they could, but the adaptation that comes from that from TSM, I think, is what will be difficult to handle.
Yeah, that's the most important thing for TSM as a team. You have to have expectations that their adaptation in defeats would be way too good, and you have to have constantly bringing out new strategies, reinventing how you're playing the game.
Absolutely. Well, whether you're cheering for the GPL, NA, or any other region, make sure you show your support during the 2017 MSI Fandom Battle. You can participate with the 1 IP icon or the 250 RP icon. Get yourself some sweet BM emotes for the game. Winners at the end of the tourney get an exclusive icon, and their region will get a 3-day IP boost. Now, in first place right now, CB Law coming in strong. Second place, LLN. Third place is the EU LCS. And over the course of the tournament, we will be checking in on who's in the lead throughout the entire tournament. So tell your friends, 1 IP, get yourself an icon, have a great time. But of course, before we get into the match, let's send it over to a piece about how Optimus from the Gigabyte Marines got his start in the competitive scene.
Em chơi Liên Minh Thoại từ năm 2012 và ở thời điểm đó thì em cũng chỉ là đi chơi net để giải trí, nhưng mà dần dần thì em thấy mọi người trong cùng một quán internet họ chơi cùng với nhau, và em cũng muốn là có những người chơi chung nên em mới dần dần tìm sang chơi chung với họ.
Anh ấy là một tuyển thủ tài năng, có nhiều kinh nghiệm và rất tự tin trong những pha xử lý của mình.
Optimus luôn tạo được sự tin tưởng cho đồng đội kể cả trong game lẫn ngoài đời.
Trong game thì là một cậu nhóc rất là nghiêm túc và luôn hướng tới chiến thắng của team lên hàng đầu. Ở ngoài đời thì hơi là cũng có một chút vui vẻ, nhưng mà cũng có một chút gì đó gọi là khó gần.
Ở GBL thì cũng nhiều, nhưng mà ở trên giải mà ở khu vực wildcard cũng như là thế giới thì em chưa, và wildcard thì em đây là lần đầu tiên.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first match. It's going to decide who advances to the MSI group stage. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and it is my distinct pleasure to cast for the first time alongside the unmatchable Andrew Vedius Day. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Very excited to cast with the legend himself, Mr. Captain Flowers.
Legend for showing up during this split. Not exactly a legend yet, but we're looking on writing that story right now. But an even more important story that we've got to write is this match today. Before we get into Champion Select, though, we have to go through the rosters. On the blue side, it's TSM. With Haunser in the top lane, Svenskeren in the jungle, Bjergsen in middle, Wild Turtle bottom, Biofrost supporting, and Coach Park.
Meanwhile, their opponents on the red side of the Rift will be the Gigabyte Marines. Their top laner is Stark, jungler Levi, mid laner Optimus, AD carry Slay, their support Archie, and Coach Tinniker.
Now, Vedius, this is going to be the first time so far during MSI, during the play-in stage, that we get to see TSM take the stage. Gigabyte Marines, we've seen them over the course of the past week really get in there, show us what they're made of, and this is a team that surprised a lot of us, both fans and analysts alike.
Yeah, I mean, the first week of the first day rather of Group B, a lot of question marks were around how well will the Gigabyte Marines do, because favorites were looking at Lion Gaming, Virtus Pro as perhaps being the dark horse, and then the Gigabyte Marines start off the day with a convincing 3-0 with 3 just massive plays that swung open the game. And then as analysts, we were like, I don't know, is that really going to be enough? Like, I feel like Lion will grow, Virtus Pro will grow. But then coming into the second day, these guys just demolished everyone with fantastic execution in terms of being able to force early plays. Their drafting was very good, and just their ability to work as a team was just above and beyond what we were expecting.
Now, one thing that we have to keep in mind the entire time is sort of the conversation that's framed a lot of the discussion around many of these teams heading into the play-in stage, and that's the whole big fish in a small pond syndrome, right? How good, how adept are these guys as a team really when they're up against a higher level of competition, which is what they're going to be staring down the barrel of now that they've made it to round 2, now that they have to go up against a team like TSM. can they compete? Can they hang in there and show, just like they did in round 1, where they might not have even been the stars of their group, but they stepped up and said, hey, you have to consider us. We're one of the guys that's going to be a big threat. Can they do that now against somebody like TSM?
Well, I hope so. I'd like them to bring it to TSM. I want a competitive series against these two teams, but I think TSM, they're looking to demonstrate their power here in this best of 5, and they want to go into the main event strong.
As TSM, you also have sort of a statement that you want to make in this, right? You, along with the team from the LMS, the Flash Wolves, these are the 2 regions that, despite being normally considered part of the Big 5, have been chosen to play through the play-in stage. They've got to earn their spot. They've got to say, yes, we deserve to be there. So coming out of this with a convincing 3-0 victory for TSM would be exactly the way that you want to say, look, we don't belong in play-ins, just send us to the main event next time.
Well, right now, they're doing it by showing their respect towards the Gigabyte Marines. Kennen is a champion that has been consistently banned against the Gigabyte Marines, largely because of its ability to be flexed between AD carry and top. Stark as an individual likes to play carry top laners. He likes to be in your face, and he likes to be able to make plays happen. The big champion for him that he's had a lot of success on is this Rumble, but Haunter is exactly the same, and they are on blue side. With Lulu being banned away, a champion that was picked in every single rotation, first time during the North American LCS finals, I'm looking at this Rumble and wondering whether or not the Gigabyte Marines will allow it through.
And look at the respect being given to Levi as well. We talked about this guy on the Gigabyte Marines being their playmaker, being the guy who sets everything up and gets things going for them. Elise and Lee Sin both going to be taken off the table by TSM to make sure he's not on those early playmakers.
And then it makes you wonder what's Levi going to work towards next, right? Because TSM, they always come to these international events with some new stuff, right? Like, sure, you might ban away a lot of the strong power picks, but I'm now looking, Ivern is left available, something that Svenskeren picked up a lot during the regular season. Graves as well is going to be up and available, and I feel like now if you're the Gigabyte Marines, you're looking at either rotating a Rumble and a Kha'Zix, or getting yourself a Rumble and a Karma, so that you guarantee a powerful bottom lane and a strong top half of the map.
TSM was very quick locking in that Graves for the jungle. Only took him about 5 seconds to say, you know, that's exactly what we want. We don't need to sit here. We don't need to think about it. That's the game plan. Gigabyte Marine's going to go ahead, pick up the Gragas for themselves first and foremost. Thinking now about that Karma to accompany it. Could be very powerful. Have to see if that's exactly what they want to go with here to start this draft off.
I am very surprised that the Gigabyte Marines would lock in that Gragas. You would expect it to be top lane. Stark did bring it out during the group stages. But it's one of those champions that it does reasonably well into the Rumble, therefore I would imagine that they are expecting it. But also, TSM have a tendency to draft their mid laner very early on during the draft as well. They want to make sure that Bjergsen is on a champion that he's comfortable and he knows he can win. And with champions like Syndra and Orianna also available, they may very well look to pick that up in this half of the draft.
TSM thinking about what they want to do here to address that Gragas and Karma that they've now seen picked up by the side of their opponents. Hovering over the Ashe, we've seen that be a very effective pick so far, and it looks like that's what they are going to be going with second in this draft. Now, do they want to lock in one of those mid laners like you might have suggested? Do they want to make sure that they get that going for Bjergsen now, or do they want to wait a little bit and see perhaps what the rest of the draft has in store?
Given that they are on blue side, they could look to just lock in their support right now. Or the top laner, we talked a lot about Rumble earlier on. Into the Gragas matchup, it is very fine. He still has the pushing power, he still trades very well, and it is one of Haunter's signature champions. During the North American Finals, it was banned in every single game against him. This guy is a proficient Rumble player, and you really cannot afford to allow him to have it, at least within his own region.
And an interesting thing about taking that Rumble for Haunter as well, you keep it out of the hands of Stark, and when you look at the 6 games played by the Gigabyte Marines so far in MSI, half of those games were on Rumble. So denying that away from Stark is going to be big in its own right, as the Kha'Zix that you mentioned earlier does end up becoming the jungle pick for Levi.
So now with jungle, top, and support locked in, if you are the Gigabyte Marines, you're looking to take away some of the few supports that are left. Zyra is a likely contender, Thresh also being taken off the board, and if you're the TSM, then you start banning away champions like the Varus. You can also look to ban away. I wonder whether or not the Gigabyte Marines will go more towards something like the Caitlyn that they have. Brought out Slay, not really known for his mechanical proficiency, but more the brains behind the team. Very much the guy that sets up the plays and is very much about providing the utility and the support for the rest of his for the rest of the lineup.
LeBlanc, the first ban coming out of TSM in the second half of the banning phase, looking towards that mid lane, seeing if they might be able to take a couple of tools out of Optimus's belt to make sure that he doesn't have those available to himself. Remember, what we heard from the analyst desk before this series started is that Levi and Optimus are kind of the two guys that make everything happen on the side of the Gigabyte Marines. They wanted to target Levi in the first half of the bans, now targeting Optimus in that second half to just remove power from both of those key players.
Certainly seems to be the case. Now, bear in mind, Optimus, he's played a different champion in every single game of the play-ins. So he's definitely not afraid of showing off his champion pool. He definitely has a depth. But the same can be said for Bjergsen, right? Like, this guy is always looking to get himself a strong laner, but given that he will have to deal with the fact that Gigabyte Marines is likely going to get themselves the counter, I wonder what direction they're going to go in. I feel like a safe pick for the Gigabyte Marines right now would just be locking that Varus. You have a powerful pushing lane down bottom. You should be able to deal just fine against the Ashe. You also have a secondary engage tool alongside with the Gragas. But instead, perhaps they're going to shift back towards the Ziggs that Slay did play on their very first day of the play.
Yeah, they did have Slay on this once so far. You talked about how Optimus has been on 6 different picks in 6 different games. Well, Slay has actually been on 5 different picks in 6 games. One of those was the bottom lane Ziggs, something that we haven't been able to see a lot of so far in NALCS, so TSM might not have the most experience playing against something along these lines, but now hovering over that Zyra to go along with the Ashe there in the bottom lane. That's going to be locked in for TSM. And all that's left now is Bjergsen's mid lane pick.
I wonder what it is, because if he blinds pick Syndra, then I'm almost certain that Optimus will go towards something like a Fizz. If he goes to something like an Orianna, then Optimus is going to go for Ahri. Like, no matter what he picks, he's going to have a difficult time in terms of the matchup. But instead, he's going to go for something a little bit more safe. Now, you could still pick an Assassin into the Jace, like a Fizz, but it definitely is difficult. Like, it becomes much harder because of how effective Jaces are not only pushing the wave, but at trading early level.
Gigabyte Marines do have their chance for this counter pick. We'll have to see what they want to go ahead and do with it with 10 seconds left on the clock. The decision running out of time to be made. Gigabyte wants to make sure that Optimus has every possible advantage in this matchup. They're going to go ahead. They're going to put him on the Syndra. Make it so that if he gets ahead, like he and Levi like to do, he will have the power to delete people off the board once they get into these big fights.
So the risk that you have right now for the Gigabyte Marines is that you will not be able to send someone off into the side lane to match Bjergsen, as they have drafted themselves a bit of a 1-3-1 composition here. You have the Jace you can move off along with the Rumble, and then you just have your Ashe and Zyra be primary wave clears, and the sieging power of this TSM composition is monstrous. You throw the Rumble ultimate down behind the tower, you have the poke coming out from the Zyra, the Jace, and then when they get near that tower, a Graves and an Ashe are going to shred through that objective before you even have a chance to answer. So I love this ability to force these towers very early on from TSM.
Yeah, the amount of zone control tools with smoke screens and strangle thorns and plants being set up, along with the equalizer like you mentioned, they really have to respect those zones of control on the side of Gigabyte Marines if they want to be able to take these fights against TSM, because Gigabyte Marines has some serious damage in this composition with a Kha'Zix and a Syndra and a Ziggs, but it's bursty type damage.
They also have a lot of wave clear, which could make sieging a little bit difficult, especially when you think of the Ziggs. And we also have to remember how great he is at being able to take down these structures thanks to his Satchel Charge too. So in terms of being able to, or what we expect from this game is very much the 1-3-1 from TSM and much more team fighting from the side of the Gigabyte Marines. Regardless, I think that we're seeing two compositions that very much exemplify the strengths that both teams have.
And going back to what we kind of heard the analysts talking about before this one, we want to see the Gigabyte Marines go for those early aggressive plays, that trademark style that we've seen them exhibit so far in MSI, in this play-in stage. Because this team is one that has made some really decisive moves, especially around power spikes, based around levels, based around items. This is a team that knows when they want to pull the trigger, and they just do it. On to Summoner's Rift for the first time in this best of 5, though. TSM coming out the gate, fanning out. Gigabyte Marines going to be doing the same thing. Everybody just drawing their point on that line of scrimmage across the river, making sure nothing too crazy happens here, level 1.
Listen to that crowd. They are just so excited to see TSM play up against the Gigabyte Marines. And the pressure will certainly be on. Gigabyte Marines considered to be the underdogs in this best of 5. And it is a best of 5, so there's plenty of opportunities to adapt and change up your style should you need to. But it is a very standard composition, I feel, from the Gigabyte. They have a powerful mid laner that has the push priority. They have it combined with Kha'Zix, who is a high damage early dealing champion. And while in the bottom lane, you should struggle a little bit in terms of your ability to trade, but the moment Slay gets his Lost Chapter, it's just going to be push and push and push and push. And after that, I'm looking towards Gigabyte Marines trying to make a play down bottom. On the second day of Group B, that is where they get a lot of their leads, just making that map movement down, being able to take that structure very early on and then rotating Slay and Archie around the map and just gradually bleeding out their opponents.
It'll be interesting to see the difference between these two teams as well in terms of where they've been before this, right? You had the Gigabyte Marines playing the past week. TSM has had time for lots of preparation as Svenskeren gets into enemy territory with Haunter and Bjergsen right next to him. Very early, trying to steal away one of those camps, but don't exactly get away with it. Now they're going to be turning the aggro right back onto him. Svenskeren trying to flash away, but first blood over to Gigabyte Marines. TSM go too far forward.
TSM, they tried to contest the Raptors at level 1. They feel like they're going up against the Kazakhs. They should be able to do it, especially with Haunter moving down. They didn't realize that Stark was sitting in the brush behind him, and now Haunter's trying to stop TSM from losing anything else.
Haunter wants to stop this, but he's quickly found himself in a pretty bad spot. Levi and Stark, a little bit more damage is what they're going to need to finish this one off. Blast Cone going to make sure he gets away from the Gragas.
He's going.
Levi still wants to chase after this one. He doesn't have the ability to get there, though. Void Spikes and Leap. Doesn't have the claw to make sure that he had enough damage during that fight to find the kill, but this is a very good start for the Gigabyte Marine.
Oh, it certainly is. You can just see here, Levi gets the smite, which gives him a lot of health back, but it also gives him the level 2. He takes the leap to dive onto Svenskeren, and given that his flash is down, there's no way that he's going to escape this 3-man unit. Great first blood for the side of the Gigabyte Marines, and now they're off to the kind of start that you would want. Because when we talk about their playstyle, when we talk about this duo of Levi and Optimus being able to snowball an early lead, the fact that the first blood goes onto this Kha'Zix, he's going to get that early item spike, and he's going to have the ability to make more proactive plays in the first half of the game.
You can't ask for a much better start than wanting to start off at your chicken camp and just getting a first blood instead.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal way to get out the gate here for Levi, but Svenskeren's doing a good job of moving into the enemy jungle, taking away those camps, making sure he doesn't fall behind from losing his jungle to Levi as well. The TSM jungler not going to be completely losing his footing in this game off of that start.
He's also showing a lot of respect as well, because note that bottom lane is pushing in favor of Team Solo mid, very much what you'd expect during the early levels of this Ashe Zyra bottom lane. Along with mid as well, Bjergsen, he was able to get a very early level 2, thanks to Optimus getting into lane later, which means that he too had the push over Optimus. So Svenskeren's invade was very safe, he knew they had the support from the rest of his team, and that means that he's now been able to catch up in terms of experience. But the gold advantage is still going to be sitting ever so slightly in Levi's favor.
Bjergsen versus Optimus here in this mid lane. Both mid laners taking exhaust in this match. Those still about a third of the time left on the cooldown, 70 seconds or so before they come back up. Levi taking the blast cone over the wall. See if he can find the chance to go on to Haunter here, who has no way out of this one. Stark getting in a couple more auto attacks, and Levi cuts him down. Make this a 2-0 game for the Gigabyte Marines.
And this was Levi not even going back to base. He took advantage of the blast cone. The ward literally just ran out as he jumps over the wall. And Haunter playing Grumble, he pushes in hard. There's nothing he can really do about it. As we see now Optimus being forced back in the middle lane. High octane action very early on into this game. But Svenskeren, he's still doing well in terms of experience. He's still punishing Levi wherever he sees an opportunity.
Which is exactly what you want to see coming out of that Graves, right? Graves might not be the best active ganking champion early on in the game, but when you see somebody show up, you know you can go steal those camps very effectively. You're very difficult to actually, not very difficult, but you're very tanky against those jungle camps.
You certainly are, yeah.
Kite them around, make sure that you keep yourself nice and topped off, and if somebody tries to come fight you, guy's a hell of a duelist.
And his wave clear is just extremely strong as well, right? So you just rip through those camps, and now Levi, he's still doing absolutely fine though. He's currently got a longsword advantage over his jungle counterpart. Svenskeren will primarily just invest in farming and vision, picking himself up the early track is nice. Maintaining control over the top half of the river is now going to be very important for him, because Stark, he can set up this wave so the Haunter's going to be forced to overextend. He's going to need the support of his jungler to be able to force it underneath the tower in order to reset the wave and be able to get some experience, because Stark, he's going for the Fellowship build. He's feeling pretty confident, and he's going to be able to trade pretty effectively and get the level 6 mark well before Haunter will.
You can see Levi still hanging around up here. Level 5 on the Kha'Zix. Not really too close to level 6 just yet, so still a ways away from that first evolution. Both mid laners also going to be nearing on that level 6 point soon, but that means a lot more for Optimus than it does for Bjergsen, of course, because it will unlock the ultimate potential, that point and click to delete that Syndra is so notorious for. Levi wanting to work his way up into this top lane brush to get a sort of surprise factor off, but just out of Fog of War, he's going to go ahead and recall.
I love this proactivity from Levi, the fact that he's still staying ahead in farm of Svenskeren, but he's always looking for opportunities to ganks. He knows the advantage that he has, and he wants to try and push it onto TSM. This is the sort of play that you need to be taking to TSM. You can't play scared, you can't play reserved, you can't be showing too much respect. And I love the proactivity that we are seeing from the Vietnamese squad.
Yeah, you want to see that kind of bravery. You don't want to see a team sort of psych itself out saying, okay, we're playing against TSM. This is a higher quality team than what we've had to play against so far in terms of other smaller regions. We got to make sure that we tone it back a little bit. You got to stay true to your own style. You've got to play the kind of League of Legends that gives you a win, which is what the Gigabyte Marines are trying to do right now. And TSM, I saw a tweet from Bjergsen the other day where he was talking about how the team is just eating, breathing, and sleeping League of Legends right now, trying to put on the best possible performance they can for their fans and their region and everybody here at MSI. As Bjergsen gonna take a little bit of damage here, but Levi can't really get in range to set up anything else. Exhaust also still available for Bjergsen. Flash 2, both summoner spells up, means that you can't go too ham on him unless you know you're going to find that kill.
And bear in mind, that invade from TSM wasn't necessarily the wrong decision. It was just a decision that you have to be very mindful of, right? If Svenskeren gets the smite, he gets level 2, and then that goes very differently. And now bear in mind, down the bottom lane.
Oh! Slay grabbing a kill onto Wild Turtle before we even see what's going on. This takes him out of the picture. Both summoner spells also going to be expended by the TSM AD carry as Levi grabs a killing spree up here in the 2v2. Optimus going to be in some danger. Bjergsen's able to pick him up. Levi failing before he can do anything else. There's not really any opportunity to clean that one up at all. But action across the map.
Gigabyte Marines, they're just coming out the gate swinging. They're able to get themselves a 2v2 kill down bot. Now let's see exactly how it happens. Wild Turtle, oh man, that is very aggressive. That is not how you want to be positioning against Slay and Archie. Severe disrespect to the bottom lane of the Gigabyte Marines. And now we see both Optimus and Levi just getting a pick onto Svenskeren. They set up the ward over the wall, knowing that the blue buff had just spawned. They felt that TSM would make that map movement. I think the real target was Bjergsen, but instead they find themselves an easy jungle picking. While it does end up being a 1-for-1, Gigabyte Marines extend their gold lead even further.
And you know, that's one of the criticisms you commonly hear for Wild Turtle as a player, is he gets too aggressive. He tries to make too many plays, his positioning is too far forward. And right there, the respect that he didn't show to Slay and Archie, just putting himself in a spot where he was able to be juggled around and bursted down like that. Can't make those kind of mistakes.
Oh, no, you cannot. That is going to hurt them so much. Because think about Slay, how early now he's going to be able to get that Morello Nomicon. This is a bottom lane that's just wanting to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if you sacrifice that kind of gold this early on, it means that Gigabyte Marines are well set up to be able to take that early tower bottom and then start moving around the map.
Svenskeren wants to steal away this blue buff for the second time if he can. Levi already got his twice, but Levi actually makes sure he's the one grabbing a smite onto that. Stranglethorn's going to be used to keep Archie and Slay away from collapsing on this. TSM tries to come in and get that steal, but they just can't do it.
That's 2 for 2 now when it comes to Levi in the smite battle. I'm just so impressed with the way in which Gigabyte Marines are handling this early game, and now we see a map movement up top from Optimus.
Monster's far back enough, he should be all right. Optimus not going to find a whole lot of success off of this one, but going into this game, we were talking about Svenskeren, talking about him being an inconsistent player so far in Spring Split. And now Bjergsen going to be jumped on again by Levi, who has shown himself to be one hell of a jungler this game, getting Optimus his first kill of the game.
Gigabyte Marines, they find another kill down in the middle lane. Optimus, he tries to set up a roam up top. So Bjergsen does the natural thing, he just tries to push, he tries to punish the fact that Optimus is out of lane. But who expects Kha'Zix to just run it down mid and try and force a play?
He does what he needs to do. 3-0-1 on this jungler so far, 4 out of 5 kill participation. The only kill he wasn't a part of is where his bottom lane just insta-gibbed Wild Turtle.
Yeah, Levi is having one hell of a game. Now, the Infernal Drake has spawned. TSM, they do not want to give this away for free. Bear in mind, the Haunter has his TP, he also has his ultimate. Let's see if TSM can test.
Gigabyte Marines can take this. It'll be a very nice damage boost for them. Biofrost, Sven, and Turtle looking to collapse here onto Slay, who wants to make it a 1-for-1 if he can, but it's just not going to go through. Meanwhile, Gigabyte Marines takes down that Infernal Drake. That's a trade that they will gladly accept.
All right, Slay now not showing the appropriate respect to his lane opponent. The rest of his team was setting up around Dragon. There was no way they could provide that support, but now we see him playing mid.
Optimus eating a lot of damage, and Hanser's got it on the last tick. The Equalizer gang, more than enough to get Bjergsen on the board.
The slow combined with the lack of flash and
Get
Optimus
Hanser on the board.
made it an easy setup for TSM to punish the mid laner of the Gigabyte Marines, and the bloodshed continues. 12 minutes into the game, 8 kills already on the board. This is not what I was expecting for game one, Captain Blau.
This is quite an action-packed game number 1, which is exactly what we wanted to see. That's the way the Gigabyte Marines play League of Legends, Vedius. They like to get bloody early. They like to make sure that action is happening around the map. You are not going to see some slower, macro-oriented style where you just base everything around push timings and objective rotations. No, this is all about taking advantage of power spikes and item windows and level advantages and just making the biggest move you can out of it.
But now I do want to see a little bit more essence of macro. That's what I want to see from the Gigabyte Marines in particular, because they both, their mid laner and their AD carry, have now picked up the Morellonomicon. The ability to push and the ability to roam is going to be so much stronger, and I'm looking towards that bottom tower in particular. Now, Wild Turtle, he still has his flash on cooldown for a little while, but the ability to wave clear and their ability to dive should be pretty potent. The big thing that the Gigabyte Marines have to respect is the fact that Haunter has his teleport, and what we saw from the finals was that he is very good at using it. If his bottom lane is ever in trouble, he is going to immediately respond and try and provide that backup.
And Haunter's been a player on TSM that has really done a lot of stepping up so far this split for the team in terms of just the role that he plays on it. With the departure of Double Lift and Wild Turtle being his replacement, TSM lost one of its big shot callers. Bjergsen and Double Lift sort of sharing that responsibility. Then all this weight fell onto Bjergsen. Haunter kind of took over helping out the team, being one of those leaders for TSM, as well as just having some standout performances in the top lane, just being a phenomenal force up there in that northern half of the map. So this is definitely a guy that you can rely on along with Bjergsen to make those kinds of plays and put TSM in a spot where they can come back from this early deficit.
And I feel like that TSM is still setting themselves up nicely for the 1-3-1. It is the responsibility of the Gigabyte Marines to continue pushing this lead that they currently have, because their biggest fear is that Bjergsen gets strong enough that Optimus cannot hold him. And now we see a fight in the bottom lane.
Levi comes over the wall. Turtle going to be forced to try to get himself away from this one, but Levi goes too deep. Svenskaren's able to find one. Can he make it two? Yes, he can. A double kill for the Graves. Optimus from behind needs a little bit more damage onto Wild Turtle, who's going to be sidestepping those orbs for now, but he does go down. Biofrost trying to escape. Stark makes his way into the fight. Haunter too, who grabs the kill onto the enemy bot laner. A double kill for Optimus. Now Haunter going to be taken down. The fat man gives him the belly slop. The belly flop. It's a little bit of a sloppy fight, but Bjergsen, the last man standing for TSM.
We thought this game had slowed down, but then the Gigabyte Marines, they find another fight with Team Solomid down in the bottom lane, and it ends up in a 4-for-3 trade going in the favor of the Marines. They pick themselves up a number of kills, but this might not very well be over yet.
It's not over yet. Accelerated shock blast. Oh! Bjergsen with the nice flash! Gets the kill onto Optimus. 2-1-1 now for the Jace.
So let's see how all this action happened, because we have Levi. He just dives over the wall, following on from the aggression that Archie and Slade tried to instigate. Levi walks face first into Svenskaren, lying in wait to turn it around. And again, here's this great TP from Onsa, joining the fight well before Stark can, but Stark is the one that's cleaning up the back end of this fight, and the action isn't even over yet.
Again, another invade from Gigabyte Marines, another blue buff that they will be securing away from TSM. Levi, Archie, and Stark now looking to make a play with Slay already here in the top side. Svenskaren going to be bursted low, going to be taken down. Haunter too, a little bit more damage will do it, and that is 2 for free for the Gigabyte Marines as Biofrost rotates up, but can't do anything with it.
So the Gigabyte Marines, they forget bottom lane, they move to the top half knowing that they have a big minion wave available to them. They set up for the dive, and this was the clean macro play that we talked about from the Gigabyte Marines in their game versus Lion. They will not be able to get themselves the first tower of the game, but overall they still come out positive. They get themselves 2 kills, they get themselves control over the top half of the map. And this is just great play from the Marines.
And that's that trigger pull we were talking about earlier, right? That's how these guys are so decisive and saying, look, this is the play, this is what we're doing, go. Everybody get on it, let's make it happen. Of course, credit over to Wild Turtle from TSM, who was also able to recognize that massive rotation, push up as quickly as he could, and just by a split second, get the turret first blood as the blue buff resets itself.
Optimus, why?
That feels bad, man.
Oh,
I was
man.
gonna waste that much more time on it. But it might feel bad, but at least it feels better than losing your blue buff.
He might still lose it.
Maybe. If he ends up losing this just because it had to reset, okay.
He's got it,
All right,
guys.
it's secured. Optimus gets what he came for.
All right, so top lane goes down in favor of Gigabyte Marines. TSM respond with the bottom lane tower. Now the arrow's available.
Arrow misses, but the rest of the damage is there. Stepping away from that arrow puts him right in the waiting arms of the Strangled Thorns, as now Svenskaren's going to be taken down in retaliation, a 1-for-1. TSM finds the setup they were looking for, but the reaction from the Gigabyte Marines is swift.
Now TSM, they realized that they got to the river much faster, so they set up vision control, and they punish Archie for trying to clear out this vision by himself. But every single time, the Gigabyte Marines are responding. They are always trying to fight TSM if they are the instigators. Now, Jungler is down for Team Solar Mid. Gigabyte Marines have priority over the Drake. I think this will be a difficult contest for TSM.
Levi taking this Drake down pretty rapidly. Equalizer going to be cast to just try to zone them away if at all possible. The Smite Secure comes in. The Marines have got themselves their second Drake of the game.
No plan.
Stark's going to be holding the line against multiple members of TSM, and some poor coordination almost messes that up. But now they're able to turn it into 2, and the Marines are 14-8.
A very nearly bad setup from Stark, but it ends up going in the Gigabyte Marines' favor. They're now knocking on the door of this Tier 1 tower, and they currently have a 3,000 gold advantage over TSM.
And why not make it even more, Vedius? These guys are not stopping yet. Continuing to push up onto that Tier 2, and it goes back to what you said earlier. Remember, with Ziggs on the team, every turret essentially has 30% less health, or more, depending on how quickly he maxes the ability.
And this is Wild Turtle again. We criticized him earlier on. He feels safer moving into the river given that Haunter is there, but he has no flash. He doesn't respect the positioning of Stark, and this then makes it awkward for Haunter, who's just doing his best to keep his AD carry alive. Once again, the AD carry on TSM just being punished for his poor position.
1, 3, and 2 so far on this Ashe, not having the best of days in terms of the scoreline. Behind his lane opponent in terms of farm as well. Lichbane being worked on by Slay to make him that much more effective at taking down those turrets. We've all seen the silly YouTube clips of a Ziggs throwing a Lichbane auto attack into its satchel and just destroying a turret instantly. And sadly for TSM, that may be the reality that they're eventually faced with if the Marines are allowed to keep making the plays they want to make and playing this game their way.
The big thing for TSM still in this game is Bjergsen, the consistent factor about this lineup. He is a guy that will always perform, and look, he already has a level advantage over Optimus. He's still 2-1-1. He has healthy farm, and he's in a decent position. So there's still the ability for TSM to be able to play this 1-3-1. It's just about being able to move around the map more efficiently than that of the Gigabyte Marines, and now they should be able to easily take this tower down in the top lane. The question is, how can the Gigabyte Marines respond?
Stark uses the ulti, just trying to buy some time, but unfortunately for him, it's not going to do a lot just yet. However, it will do enough to buy Slay the opportunity to take down that Tier 2 in the mid lane. That's a 4 turret count now for the Marines, as they have put a dent in that Tier 2 line.
One of the big question marks that we had when we were discussing coming into this game is when you see these play-in teams, initially you think, how great is their understanding of macro? How well do they know how to punish these positional mistakes from their opponents? And one of the big praises that we gave to Supermassive was they seemed like the best team at understanding how to move around the map and how to take advantage rather than from snowballing kills, but more from just poor positioning and good vision control. Now what we see from the Gigabyte Marines is their ability to constantly punish it, and I think they're looking to do exactly the same down in the bottom lane.
Monster being collapsed on by 2. Got to try to work his way out of this one if at all possible, but Levi's there with the damage, Stark's there with the CC, and the top laner from the Marines will go to 5-0-2.
And this is exactly what we were just talking about. Look at the setup from TSM. The rest of Horns' teammates were back in base. He was overextended in the bottom lane without any vision. Levi saw that as an opportunity, immediately rotates down, and they get themselves a kill. Now TSM, all they've tried to do is quickly get themselves some vision around Baron, because that is likely going to be one of the big objectives that Gigabyte Marines will have their eyes on. But instead, the Marines are saying, we want to put pressure down on this tier 2 in the bottom lane.
They put a couple of hits on it, but Bjergsen is there in time to make sure that it's not any serious damage. Meanwhile, Slay continues the pressure here in the mid lane, and the Gigabyte Marine game plan has pretty much gone according to plan so far. I mean, TSM, we had questions on how well is this going to work now that you're going up against a higher caliber of team. Are the Gigabyte Marines really this adept at these early aggressive plays and playing around these spikes, or are they just playing against teams that don't have the tools to retaliate against it and answer it properly? And right now, it's seeming like, yeah, they're just really, really good at this plan.
They certainly are, but they still have to close out the game, and that is the big difficulty. Remember that TSM, they have been in this position before. The Gigabyte Marines were consistently dominant within their own region. They were dominant during the group stages of Group B. And now they're going to be able to, now they have to try and close out this game. This is still a best of 5 series. They still need to take it all the way. And while this is a great start, remember that it came off the back of punishing Svenskeren for trying to make that invade. It came off the back of TSM not being able to properly execute on their level 1 plan. And the Gigabyte Marines took advantage of that. So we'll now have to see what they can continue to do. Their main objective is going to be around this Baron area. They're keeping Stark down the bottom half of the map. He has his teleport up and available. And a lot of the Gigabyte Marines have hit a lot of these 2-item spikes. The issue that they have is with Ziggs, he doesn't have the fastest Baron taking potential, right? So let's see where the Gigabyte Marines look to try and move now.
TSM keeping 3 bodies around the mid lane. Levi and Optimus trying to clear out that control ward, but Optimus gets hit and he is going to be exploded. Wild Turtle taking the kill credit for that one, and TSM might have found their chance to maybe make some more happen here. Bjergsen popping the ghost blades, Svenskeren wanting to get in there, find even more damage if he can. Levi going to be kiting backwards, utilizing the triple rockets, but Archie has been left for dead. Bjergsen goes forward, and with a tumble through the air, Svenskeren is going to be the one who takes the kill credit for it. Now TSM moving on potentially towards greater things. Baron Nashor is going to clear a ward away from that one, continue to push up now down mid lane. It's a 5 versus 3.
Svenskeren has already lost 2 swipe fights this game. He doesn't want to make it a third. They're going to go for the easy objective of mid lane. It is the safer, smarter play, but great response from the side of TSM. They realize that only Optimus and Levi, the 2-man unit, were trying to clear out that vision. Even though 3 members of TSM were all sitting on that ward, the Gigabyte Marines did not respect the possibility of that engage coming out from them. Now look, they're actually just going to go straight for the Baron as TSM. They're in the bottom half of the map.
This is incredibly brave from Gigabyte Marines. They are just starting Baron up. Redemption's going to be used to keep them healthy. Baron's down to about 1/3 HP. Haunts are going to fire the equalizer. Biofrost taken low. They're trying to stay on top of Baron if they can. And Gigabyte Marines have taken Baron Nashor. Haunts are now working his way into the pit, able to find 1, not going to be finding 2. 3 dead on TSM. They find a triple kill onto the enemy jungler, and Gigabyte Marines now have control over everything. Turtle's able to rotate top, grab the kill onto Slay. But it's a 3 versus 1 for the next 20 seconds.
But this is a decision-making from the Gigabyte Marines. This is what they were known for on the day 1 of Group B. These guys just see an opportunity and they rush it. They saw TSM moving down to the Mountain Drake. They saw an opportunity, and my word, there was so much risk against the Rumble in the Baron pit with Bjergsen and Svenskeren just coming up through the river. So many things could have gone wrong, but they didn't care. They make it work, and they get themselves an inhibitor. Just look at this play from Optimus. A great flash from him to avoid the damage from Bjergsen and Biofrost. But then you've got 3 members sitting in the pit against a Rumble ultimate, but the rest of TSM, they cannot follow up. So TSM, he's left by himself, and sure, he's able to get himself a kill. But the Baron is the core objective that goes in the favor of Gigabyte Marines. And I'm just so impressed with how these guys are playing this game.
And TSM, that Baron call from Gigabyte also stopped them from getting the Mountain Drake, because TSM had to bail out and say, wait, we got more important stuff to deal with. So now the 3rd elemental Drake of the game will go the way of the Marines. Monster a little bit too close for comfort here. Stark taking a swig and walking up, but doesn't want to go too far onto that one. Marines now have a 7,000 gold lead, just 25 minutes into this game. Betty has 5 turrets to 3, 3 Drakes to 0. This game has been in their control from the start. The one time we see TSM make that good play, find the catch onto Optimus, make more out of it, the immediate response is there. Now they've got to defend against the further Baron push. And they're gonna do it in spectacular style. 2 dead on the side of the Marines, and TSM is quickly looking to respond to this Baron push and stop it in its tracks.
So TSM, they're saying, you know what, we can punish mistakes too. You funnel into that choke point, we're gonna throw down our equalizer with the Strangle Thorns, and there is nothing that you're gonna be able to do about it. Really good response from TSM. They'll be able to buy time now during the Baron, and they very well could not lose anything off the back of it. And this is the kind of play that we see a lot from TSM. When their backs are against the wall, they're not a team that will just calmly bleed out. They're not a team that will just concede all of their objectives. They will position themselves in a small gap where they know you have no vision, and they will lie in wait. And the moment they see you overstep, the moment they see a slight opportunity, they will punish it. They did this so well in Game 3 against Cloud9, and that's how they reasserted themselves back into the game, and now they're trying to do it against the Gigabyte Marines.
And this is that zone control we were talking about from their composition as well, with Stranglethorns and Equalizers and smoke screens. You can't get near the red or you're gonna have a real bad time, and the Gigabyte Marines learned that one the hard way. They've still got themselves an advantage. The game is still under their control. They've still got that mid-lane inhibitor down, but they've really got to respect what could happen if they underestimate TSM again and walk into one of those choke points, one of those small corridors you mentioned, because that's where TSM's composition shines.
And this is fine for TSM because they've been able to stall out the entire duration of Baron. They did end up losing their mid inhibitor, but they've lost nothing else off the back of it too. Now with the Ziggs, it should be pretty easy for Gigabyte to just group up top and start sieging onto this tower, but there's always that possibility of the flank, and just look at the vision from TSM in their half of the jungle. They're the ones that are fully in control. So if the Gigabyte Marines try to set up this siege, the flanking opportunities from TSM are just lying in wait.
Dark takes a drink, Zone's been scaring away. Biofrost's gonna be eating a lot of burst from Optimus, but now returns some of his own, still gonna be kept alive just ever so barely. More damage coming out. Levi looking to chase him down if he can. Collateral damage, not gonna be finding much of anything, but Levi finds Bio, and that makes this a 5v4 for the next 30 seconds.
But Starkey's taking a lot of damage. The front line for the Gigabyte Marines is very low. The big thing for TSM is they've lost their disengage tool in Zyra. Gigabyte Marines, they feel confident enough to siege onto this tower, but I feel like it would be safe for them to disengage. They're going in.
Oh, Haunter forced to flash out to keep himself alive. Mega Inferno Bomb comes in, but not going to be finding a whole lot of payoff from that one. Marines still thinking about hanging around for this one, but you've got to watch out. You've got to be careful with Optimus' health bar.
This is very risky for the Gigabyte Marines. They are pretty low, and they're trying to siege onto a tower with no
They have no minions, so
yeah,
they're
just back off, Gigabyte.
Okay.
Just back off. Let's go home. You've gotten yourself a tower. You can be happy with that. Get yourself control now towards the bottom half of TSM's jungle. You want to look towards getting that mid-inhib along with that tier 2 tower in the bottom lane. It's only 29 minutes into the game, Captain Flowers. But the Gigabyte Marines, they're all about trying to push this lead as quickly as they can.
And you know, we were talking about Gigabyte Marines as this team. Oh yeah, look at jungle, look at mid. Every single time it's Levi and it's Optimus. But this game, you've got Levi going off on the Kha'Zix. You have him 8-1-4 doing a phenomenal job. But look at Stark with 5-0-3 on the top lane Gragas. He's been doing a lot of work on this team.
He's been having a great performance. Within his own region, he is known for playing more bruisers, the get-in-your-face style. He likes to renekton, he likes to rumble, he loves the cannon. We saw the very first ban coming out from TSM was that cannon, largely away from Stark. And this is a guy that is now moving on to the tanks. And there was a bit of fear. How well can he perform on these tanks? How well can he be that frontline individual? And so far this game, he has been doing a great job not only in lane, but in a lot of these big mid-game fights as well.
Well, the Gigabyte push machine is back in full swing, trying to take down the remaining tier 2 on the map. Mid lane inhib has respawned. Levi gonna be stunned up with the Enchanted Crystallero, but look at that damage! Haunts are gonna be going golden, trying to stay zoned, just see what he can do. Stark gonna be in the front line, soaking damage from 3 members, still staying alive somehow. Redemption will keep them alive. Turtle's gonna be taken low, somehow still going. Bjergsen's Shock Blast will take 3 low, but won't find any. And the Gigabyte Marines walk away alive.
Look at all the blinking health bars from the Gigabyte Marines. They were so close for that fight ending in disaster, but they get themselves the tower, they get themselves the kills. And this whole fight initiation comes from Wild Turtle. They lock down onto Levi. You think the setup is promising, but a beautiful stun from Optimus completely negates the follow-up engagement from Team Solo Mid. And at this point, it's just them sitting in the redemption, playing the fight safe and slow. And with that, oh, it was so close. The route into the Shock Blast could have just ended in disaster for Gigabyte Marines, but they walk away with all 5 members still alive.
That was way too close for comfort. They got to be wiping the sweat off their foreheads from that one, but the main thing that matters is they did get what they came for. They got that tier 2 turret, but they do not have free pressure going into the enemy base based off of that mid lane inhib anymore. And Baron is now live for the second time this game. Gigabyte Marines with a very decisive call, took it the first time. Now TSM trying to get vision control to make sure that doesn't happen again. Bjergsen, if he gets caught, that is just disaster for the North American LCS representatives, and that's the truth they're dealing with. Cask beautifully knocks Biofrost and Turtle right back into their waiting arms. Levi's gonna be resetting, and Turtle's gonna be forgetting what it feels like to be alive for the next 45 seconds as Gigabyte Marines have their chance.
They have the Ziggs, they have 5 members, Captain Flowers. I think the Gigabyte Marines are well on their way to trying to end out this game.
Running it down mid right now, just trying to get that push going. The minion wave is coming up, the inhibitor's gonna be going down. Haunster trying to escape from Levi, who will prevent him from backing and defending. And might as well just win the 1v1 in the meantime. This is Gigabyte Marines closing in on Nexus turrets. Svenskeren will not make this defense. And against all odds and to the surprise of you, me, and almost everyone predicting this game, Gigabyte Marines will go up to a 1-0 lead.
Woo! What a game, Captain Flowers.
If you want to make a statement as a team looking to prove yourself at the MSI 2017 play-ins, you take down TSM in game number 1 of your best of 5 series. Gigabyte Marines came to play.
And they did it in such a way that was so enjoyable to watch. They gave Haunster his rumble. He didn't get that once in the North American finals. Cloud9 showed so much respect to it that they said, we have to take it off your hands. And these guys say, you know what, we're going to lock in an early Gragas and we're going to challenge your rumble. Not only that, Levi, 2 of his best junglers get taken off him. And then we even see the Jace come out. So there are like few direct counters to give Optimus the advantage. And still, these guys, they play to their style. They get that one early kill and they just keep the pressure going. The Gigabyte Marines, they are showing their stuff in this best of 5.
And TSM so confident at that level 1, moving into enemy territory, saying, look, we know that these guys like to get aggressive early. We know that the jungler's important. Let's just shut him down. And then it goes the other way. And Gigabyte's like, okay, you want to see our game plan? We're going to show it to you. But for more on the Gigabyte Marines win, let's check in with the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. It's good that you bring up that level 1 because things got pretty bad for TSM right off the bat, which I think we can safely say we did not expect.
No, absolutely didn't expect it.
You can't underestimate the Gigabyte Marines. I think that's fair to say. I'm pretty sure, based off the draft alone, TSM disrespected them just a little bit, not drafting a tank, but it is mostly that level 1. That's the thing. You don't fight a Vietnamese jungler for Raptors. I can tell you this because I cast SOFM in the LPL. Every time you look at his Raptors, it personally affects the man. He will fight you for them, and giving him like the opportunity to actually secure 5 of these, smite it, get level 2, of course you're going to lose this. It's risky.
And I think that's the weird thing. It's like TSM stick around for so long after just getting the small ones. I know they want to commit to actually getting everything from this, but first of all, they give over the first blood, and from there, they never really play with respect. Of course, Haunter has to try and stop something here. There's kind of a bit of a fortunate thing that Levi doesn't have his flash available, otherwise this would have been a double kill. And then instead of going into damage control mode, all of their members start stepping forward in these aggressive positions like Wild Turtle, completely disrespecting Slay. Like, I don't know why he's not expecting the satchel charge to come out.
And they were in complete control of the lane in that early game, right? But it just feels like you didn't need to step forward, you don't need to take those risks, and it feels like a lot of the time TSM going for aggressive plays. Now, admittedly, in this last replay, Bjergsen does come in clutch, does make it a 1-for-1, but there's so many situations where you wonder, did TSM have to take those fights?
Because on that one, like, they'd just seen the vision control be denied. They knew exactly where the Kha'Zix, the Syndra, were going into the jungle, and yet you cross through mid. It's a great setup from the Gigabyte Marines. I don't want to take anything away from that. Knowing they can get a pick, successfully capitalizing it, puts them in such a strong position.
Well, of course, the question always is with teams like this, if they get an early lead, can they capitalize? Can they snowball? And for Gigabyte Marines, the resounding answer was yes. As we take a chance to look at our second replay, you can see after just a chain series of team fights, they finally start making these larger macro plays.
And this is all a very good decision from the Gigabyte Marines, specifically saying that we can dive, acknowledging that Rumble Equalizer is off cooldown, that they've swapped lanes, that they're putting a full team effort towards going towards this top lane turret. They've proven that if you give them an advantage, they play hard and fast League of Legends. And this is the example of when they are just far enough ahead and TSMs continue to disrespect them just enough that a dive is entirely possible and they actually catch two people under there instead of having them back away.
Yeah, and by a split second, not getting the first Tower Blood for the Gigabyte Marines. But I think one of the key things that the level 1 influence is it felt like TSM were playing this as if it was an even game for the majority. The fact that Bjergsen pushes up mid twice when fights are happening, thinking the rest of his team can handle it, which is okay if the game is even right there, but then doesn't have the damage to come down to the fight. Now, that's not necessarily his fault, but it's the way that TSM are playing as a team around of team fights and skirmishes.
Yeah, I just wonder if they were even expecting these fights to happen all of the time, right? Playing in their own league, a little bit more slow, refined League of Legends, whereas this is just all in. Hard to the paint, League of Legends. We'll take you down. We'll fight you at every possible
opportunity. Well, they have to be ready for it, because I feel like TSM is so often the team that is always willing to fight, that is always willing to take the fight to the enemy team when they're behind. Now, this enemy team, they're ahead. They say, sure, you want a 44, you want a 5v5? We'll take it every chance we get. And for the vast majority of the fights this game, it did feel like Gigabyte was, outplaying in a lot of those situations.
Absolutely, and that's why we've got to give them so much credit. It's not only just the fights, it's the way they move on the map, because we want to take a look at their Baron call. This is something that they had done time after time in the group stage initially a few days ago, where they just go, hey, everybody recalled on bot side from TSM. Let's go straight to the Baron. Let's rush it down. It's not the clean setup of Baron that you want textbook and deal with everything, but still, this Baron call is what is making the Gigabyte Marines so difficult to play against.
Let's take a look at that Baron call now. Looking at exactly the way this unfolded. As you said, it's risky. They just saw TSM back. They go all in for this, but they do make it work here.
And it's won them play in games, exactly as you mentioned. The ability to just say go for it. The Gigabyte Marines as a team make the best decisions and look the best when they're forcing you into awkward spots, because they are just so aggressively making these calls. No one in their right mind just says, go for Baron this early into the game with 3 people only, with 2 people not going to be around for the fight. But because TSM don't expect it, it always does seem to work out for them. That's a strength that needs to be 100% respected moving forward.
And you can see the gold graph. Almost always what we like to see when a team is going to snowball to a win. A little bit contented there in the early game, but a pretty consistent snowball, especially once that Baron comes online. Now, looking at the way this unfolded, we talked about the lack of a tank on the TSM composition. Is it that simple for them coming into the next game? Do they just need to draft a tank?
I think what TSM need to do is actually hit the drawing board, less so in the draft. Yes, the tank could have helped them perhaps from a losing position. The Jace in the mid lane as well could very easily have been a Talia, a Syndra themselves, or an Orianna, or some kind of control mage. They didn't need physical damage there as they had the Graves. So the draft, yes, could be looked at. But for me, fundamentally looking at TSM in game number 1, they need to do things more as a team. Like actually work together. We rarely saw Bjergsen actually with them during these skirmishes and fights.
Well, and how much of that, because we talked about that over the course of the game, just watching these games, Bjergsen never seems to be there, always seems to be pushing in the lane. How much of that is Bjergsen not being where he's supposed to be, and how much of that is Gigabyte Marines forcing these rapid plays, forcing TSM kind of onto the back foot?
As you said, we were talking about it during the game, it's somewhat of a part of both, right? Is that Gigabyte Marines are going towards Bjergsen and saying, hey, or going away from him, sorry, and saying, hey, he can't actually match this kind of positioning from us. And that was the point that you were saying, Rusty, was like, hey, there's 2 sides to this story, and it's both things weigh up to be pretty detrimental for teamfight and skirmishes for TSM.
At the end of the day, gentlemen, one final question. TSM, how do we feel like they're going to be able to adapt in the next game?
I think they just start with the draft phase, give themselves a traditional tank, put Haunter on something comfortable, and actually have Svenskeren farm his own side of the jungle.
I think whether it's looking towards slightly different setup, but I think it's the respect that they got to give towards Levi now. I think they'll have learned they need to actually start thinking more consciously about, hey, if Levi could be in that bush, if he could be trying to set up a gank here, we don't want to go around that area. I wonder whether seeing something like an Ivern might allow them to slow the pace of the game and take away from Levi if they can get him off one of the aggressive junglers.
Well, we'll see how that works. Talk about that more when we return. But in the meantime, we're going to head to a quick break. There's more League of Legends coming right up when we return to see if TSM can bounce back in Game 2 or if the Gigabyte Marines can jump out to a 2-game lead.
very early, trying to steal away one of those camps, but don't exactly get away with it. Now they're going to be turning the aggro right back onto him. Svenskera trying to flash away, but first blood! Stark makes his way into the fight. Hanser too, who grabs the kill onto the enemy bot laner. A double kill for Optimus. Now Hanser going to be taken down. The fat man gives him the belly slop, and Gigabyte Marines have taken Baron Nashor. Hanser now working his way into the pin, able to find one, not going to be finding two. 3 dead on TSM. They find a triple kill. Beautifully knocks Biofrost and Turtle right back into their waiting arms. Levi's going to be resetting, and Turtle's going to be forgetting what it feels like to be alive. For the Gigabyte Marines will go up to a 1-0 lead.